Yo, there is Spit here. We're getting into some editing. You know, nothing complicated.
Thunder showers are very low, and I believe that's an acceptable risk. We have plenty of energy. We only need one end of the runway on the outside left. I think we got some sound rationale here.
I think it's extremely useful to see how other creators edit their projects, because then you can take little bits and pieces from their process that may resonate with you and like incorporate it into your own process. There are some people who are super organized, and then there are some people who are not, and D for Darius is somewhere in the middle. I'll give you guys a little peek into my process when I was doing the last little fun cinematic thing that I did. Forewarning, I'm not like the most organized editor, and I'm not like the fastest editor on the planet, so do what you will with that. Let's get into it. First, I go to my templates folder and open up my template project file. I use this for most of my videos. I try and make templates whenever possible because it just saves you so much time. Inside this project, I've got a few things set up already. I've got a titles and templates sequence. This has all my intros, outros, paper animations, and text that I use in most of my YouTube videos.
They would make a total of 6.
This is my template folder with everything in it. Raw paper animations, pretty much everything that I use on a recurring basis. I keep all of my sequences in a separate folder. I try to keep all my footage organized, emphasis on try. Here I've got the footage organized by what camera I used. Drone footage gets its own folder. Music and sound effects have a separate folder. And then we've got a renders folder and a thumbnails folder. Let's just go ahead on and drag and drop the footage to import it. Boom. Right after I import all the footage, I save the project under a new name. We'll call this Mustang Cinematic. Sometimes I skip this step and end up editing all over my template, so then I don't have a new template for my projects. For this reason, I always keep a few copies of the template as a backup. Next, I drag all of my 60 frames per second slow motion footage into the sequence one by one, leaving space in between each clip. I need the extra space for when I slow all of the clips down. I've tried doing this process a few different ways. I haven't found a faster way, but when I do, you guys will be the first to know. Then I select all the clips and reduce the speed to 50%. Boom. Now they're all in slow motion. Next, I'll go through and cut out the clips that I want to use. As I'm cutting them out, I raise the keepers up one track so that I can easily spot and identify them later on. This is the first round of cuts. Next, I go for the music. I chop out the pieces that I want. See, I like the intro, so we'll keep that. But there's a middle section that I don't want. So I'll skip to where the beat drops. We'll put the intro and the beat drop back to back, and we'll just see if it flows. Sweetness. Next, I'll take all the clips that I want to use and copy them into a new sequence called selects. These are all the clips that have officially made my first round of cuts. The first round is kind of like, hey, I really like this take, but I also kind of like this one too, so we'll keep them both. But the second round of cuts, that's when I can really narrow things down further. Same thing, the clips that I want to keep, I raise them up one track. When I've made my selections, I'll duplicate the sequence and call the new sequence Selects 2. On Selects 2, I'll delete all of the clips that didn't make the second cut. Now all that's left are my final picks. Next, I'm going to rearrange all the clips in chronological order because most likely I shot things out of order. After that, I'll begin editing to music on the main sequence by copying and pasting the selects over to the main sequence. I usually lock the music track so my shortcut keys and edits don't affect it. Okay, the music's a little repetitive at this little section here, so I'm gonna go ahead on and take out another chunk. Better. For the most part, you can hide your cuts in music with a simple crossfade, like 80% of the time it works. Not always though, sometimes you gotta finesse it a little bit. I'll add in effects, mostly just overlays and speed ramps. This process can take me about 30 or 40 minutes depending on the edit. I like to try different things out, play around with it. If it doesn't work, I undo it, try other effects. Then I raise all of my effects up one track and add an adjustment layer over the footage. This is for my preliminary color grade. I'm just gonna go ahead on and add saturation and contrast over all the A7R2 footage. I shot in S-Log so the footage is super flat coming out of the camera. Then I'll go through and grade each clip one by one, making tweaks and adjustments. The last thing I add are cinebars. There are two ways to give your footage that anamorphic look. You can change the sequence settings, which is the best option, or you can just throw some cinebars on there. I use both methods. Which one I pick really depends on the project. Let's just throw some cinebars on there. You'll need to go through and adjust your clips. Make sure nothing's getting clipped and everything looks right. And finally, the very last thing I do is this sound mix. When I'm all done, I hit export. I use different settings. It depends on where the video is going to end up and what I'm making it for, what I'm using it for. But we're just going to walk you through just like a typical export. This is going on YouTube, so I'm going to leave it at H.264. We're going to leave presets to match source and high bitrate. I save it in my renders folder and name it. I'm going to go ahead on and name it Mustang Cinematic. Make sure video and audio are check marked. We're going to select VBR 2-pass. Let's raise the max bitrate to 20. Gonna make sure maximum render quality is checked off, then hit export. Booyah. It's good to export high quality, high bitrate versions of your projects if you have the time. I don't always do that for every single project. I'm kind of guilty of not doing that. It really just depends on the project and the video that I'm making. Again, everybody has their own editing workflow. There is no right or wrong way to do this. There's only what's effective and what works for you. And as you start to edit or do more editing, you will just fall into your own unique workflow and your own patterns and ways of doing it. I get a lot of questions about gear from you guys. If you're in the market for budget filmmaking gear, budget cameras, I'm just gonna leave a link in the description section to a list of budget filmmaking recommendations. I also do video chat sessions, so if you're, say, starting a new YouTube channel and you've got a lot of questions about where to start or you're not sure how to go about doing this whole thing, schedule a session with me, bring your questions. I'll leave a link in the description section where you can get more info on that. Well, that's all that I got for you. If you dig it, please like, subscribe. Thank you for watching, and all of you out there, keep hustling. Deebert out.
They would make a total of 6 stops on this traverse, collecting samples from large rocks,